One of the biggest issues of creating a website is to create basically a responsive navigation bar based on, if you're looking at the navigation or your website via a mobile device, an iPad, a tablet, or even on your desktop. And you can work with a navigation bar by actually setting up things with your CSS, but a lot of times you're going to find that working with CSS and creating your navigation and might not be as ideal in the first place. And JavaScript itself is a nice solution that basically gives you some extra resources that you can actually add to your navigation bar to create some different animation effects and that. And especially when you want to work with drop-down list that you're going to go in and add. So instead of having something more of a static navigation bar where they just click on a link, just like an example like in this case, all they have to do is click on a link up here at the top about products and rules, and it'll take them to that page on that part. But let's say if you want more information, like when we bring our mouse over about, we want it to, we hover over it, and then it opens up a menu, and it has other pages that we can go to. So this is where JavaScript really comes into play. And what I like to do is I don't like to reinvent the wheel because there are plugins out there in Jquery that we can actually download and use to create our navigation bar. Now you have to set it up correctly with HTML first, okay, and you have to make sure your list items is set up correctly. If you don't, Jquery will not be able to find all that information. So there's tons of plugins out there for you to use, and we'll take a look at one, and I'll show it to you, and we'll modify this and see how that goes on that part. Now let me start back with HTML. The biggest thing that you're going to have to work with is to set up your navigation by using a list. Okay, so here's an example list. I'm using an unordered list, which is a bullet list on that part, and then all your main list items are going to be all your main list items that we have here. Li, this is going to be your main navigational point. So that'll be your home and about us, and then what will happen is, of course, as you see here in the second part right here, I want to pay attention to this, is that we've added a nested bullet list to about us. Okay, so it's nested. First of all, notice the closing li tag right here. Okay, the opening li tags right here as well. So we're putting this UL within the list item so that it's grouped to that navigation. So that's important. A lot of people, what will happen is they'll accidentally, let me just move this up here real quick, they'll have the closing li tag right there, and then they put a UL right below it. That's not grouped. That's not a nested list item. So we have to make sure that it's within the li element, just like that. So as I move down here, you'll see the next list item called products, and then here, no closing li tag over here on the right because we're creating a nested if statement right here. Or not nested if statement, nested list on that part. So again, you're going to keep seeing that. Now what I want to show you down here under accessories, what I have here is I have another nested list statement under accessories, and then I also have another nested if statement under one of its list items. So you can create, subcategories within that area. Now if I look at this is what it's going to look like. Let me launch this in Firefox real quick. It's just a list. So you can see it's a bullet list, and then you have indented over for the sub bullets. So what we have to do is then we have to use Jquery, the plugin, to basically go in and manipulate that. First of all, we can't have it vertical. We want to go horizontal, and that's where Jquery has all that information to go in and set it up correctly for us. So, but we have to set this up first. Now, if you look at it on a page, it might look like this. See how the links are? But that's fine. You have to wait until we get the Jquery plugin installed and working, then it will work on that part. So it's just a typical list. Now notice the links here. Here's another tip for you. If you're basic users to HTML, notice that we're linking href to a hashtag. Now what that does is, since a lot of times when you're designing the layout, you don't have the actual pages created yet. So, but you're going to have these pages because in your website plan you said, okay, we're going to have this page for this page for that, but sometimes at the end you don't know what the page name is going to be. So what we do is we just put the hashtag in, and once we're done with that, and once we have the pages created, I will put the page name in to make sure it works correctly on that part. So just a little trick there on that going in. So let's take a look at this. And I have my regular page, my home page here that I'm going to create and use. I'm going to be using a Jquery plugin. The main bullet list is going to be in my nav section called the ID nav on that part. And so let's take a look at what a plugin can do. One of the Jquery plugins I like using, again, there's multiple ones out there. One is called Smart Menus for Jquery, and it's basically, as it says here, it works on all devices, so that way when you use it, it's going to be responsive, so it will actually resize depending on the device that you're working with on that. So here's an example. You bring your mouse over like about, see how it comes down, and then if I come down to company, I have more information here. I can go to different pages on that part. Now what's going to happen here with a Jquery plugin like Smart Menus, you're going to have to go in and make sure you download its library and its style sheet for it to work correctly. Now you can go back in and modify the style sheet if you need to, but what you want to do is you have to download those files for it to be able to work correctly. And there's the information down here. You just click on the community and you download it on that part. So again, you can take a look at it. There's different plugins out there to use for that purpose, but it is something that I one of the ones I like to use, because then I'll go back in and I'll do some modifications to it for that purpose. Now I'm going to look at my folder here real quick just to let you know. So in this case here, what I have here is that when I downloaded the Smart Menus, I have a folder here that has a JS file, JavaScript file, that has all the functions for it to work with. And then it has also some CSS files to work with as well. Now you can copy the CSS into your CSS folder, or you can leave it in the Smart Menus folder and so forth. But just remember this here, the core is important, and then of course you have 3 styles that you can actually use for this. The core CSS is really going to help you control the hover effect and how it would look when you bring your mouse over it and so forth. So with this, if I look in here, I also have a JS folder that has the information going to Jquery. So remember, when you download this Jquery plugin, you also have to have the Jquery link added as well, because to the library, if you don't, it's just not going to work. So you have to have 2 links here, to the Jquery library and the Smart Menus library. Okay. So now with that in mind, I have those items already downloaded, and so we have to basically go in and use JavaScript and do some modification to help this set up correctly. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make sure I get my links up here in correctly. I already have one for my main style sheet, okay, which is controlling the layout of the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 2 styles that's going to go for the core, and I'm going to use a simple design here, and I can use the clean design. That clean just gives me control over the coloring, the background, and I can go in and modify it after the fact, which is great on that part. The core -css is required. okay, for this to work. You have to have this core CSS added to it. Let me zoom in a little bit. You don't have to have the clean because you can actually customize it and do your own, but you might want to take a look at the clean aspect of that to see how it works. Okay. Um, we can go in and you can modify that to go to the one of the other styles as well. But you got to remember, if you do like the blue, it's going to have a blue theme to it. It might not fit your theme, so that's where you have to modify it. But again, remember the SM core is required. If you don't have it, the Jquery plugin will not work. Now, then I also need to go in and have the link to the Smart Menus Jquery library that we have as well. So I already have the Jquery right here. I'm just going to add it right below it. So I'm going to the Smart Menus. I'm just going to go to the Jquery JS file on that part. So I'm getting my information in. As you can see here, it's starting to build up in my head section on that. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to modify my list item down here real quick. I need to basically use, when I work with Jquery, I need to tell it where the starting point of the navigation bar is. So we have to add a class here. So we're going to say class equals, and it's important to name it exactly. You have to follow what the plugin tells you. So if you're comfortable with other Jquery like UI widgets, to format your areas, you have to use classes and IDs, and you have to use specific classes, because if you don't, then the Jquery doesn't know where to apply it. So in this case, I'm going to do equals SM space SM hyphen simple. And actually, I'm going to go back up. I did SM clean here, and I want to do SM simple for this part, because there are 3 different styles. So it's simple correction on my part. So once we have the class in, that's all we really need. Again, most of the hard part is actually setting up your list to basically navigate and get the navigation in the right area. So now all you have to do is have a document ready function in your script section that when the page loads, you want the script to run. And you basically take the code that you have here that the plugin gives to you, and you basically just kind of repeat it. There's not too much changes there that you can do. Now you can control like certain speeds on that part, and so I'm going to do is just copy the document ready over, and so you'll see in the ready function what we're doing is we're telling, okay, go and select the class.sm. That's this right down here. Okay, and then we're using the Smart Menus function, which is found in the JS, that Jquery Smart Menus JS file. And then we're telling it to run certain things. So what we're doing here is there's a method called show function, and basically it says, okay, when I bring my mouse over it, I want you to slide down, and the 250 is controlling the speed. And then of course when you move your mouse off of it, slide up, and again 250 is the speed. So you can actually control that on that part. And there's some other properties you can actually do as well. But basically that's all we need to do is add this code in for it to get it to work correctly. And this is where you would actually have to read up on the instructions for that plugin. Now, another thing that you can take a look at here as well, once you start looking at some of these, because there's so many different pre-programmed settings this plugin has, and show function is one of them, hide function is another. But as you see here where it says slide down and slide up, this is just a simple Jquery method that's added. Now you can actually replace it with other methods such as fade in hide. You can use the animate method that's part of jQuery. So this option right here, this is not really part of the smart menus. This is jQuery, and you can actually use and change that to any of the other effects that you've learned in jQuery on that part. So, which is kind of cool because then it gives you more control. So once you start looking at this and learning how these pre-programmed settings are set up, then you can go in and make some modifications. So let's take a look at this real quick. Let's launch it. Okay, so notice the bar going across. Now here, when I bring my mouse over About Us, 3 links. If I come to Products, there's extra information. And so when I click on it, we'll go to that page if I have the page set up. So really nice feature on that. Now you can change the style if you had to, for that purpose. But again, notice how it slides down. See how it slides down? Okay, so let's just do this real quick. Let's just change this to fade in. So let's reload this. Okay, to really see it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another change because it's a little bit harder to see. I'm changing the time to be 1,000, which is 1 second, since we're working with milliseconds there. So now when I bring it over, see how it fades in? So you can use any of the jQuery methods of animate. So you can, if you want to animate it to change colors, whatever. That's actually is pretty a good idea to do sometimes. Is when you bring your mouse over, you can use the animate to change the color of the text, things like that. So again, it's something that you can experiment with. And again, notice I'm using fade in and I'm using slide up. So you can use a combination of different ones for that purpose. So again, not too bad on that. Now let me show you something else. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come up here and change the SM simple, okay, to blue.css. This is another style. There's like 3 or 4 styles that the smart menus have. And I just then have to change down here the class so it says SM blue, because that's where the CSS comes in play for that. So let me run this real quick. So you can see it's now blue. Now that doesn't really fit my color scheme on that part. Now, knowing this, you could open up the blue style sheet and then you can make changes to it to fit your color scheme. So you'll notice here that it's actually, see how this .sm blue, that's the class that we defined, and so then it's affecting the information UL and A tag within that. So it's important to go in and have that to change that to the proper class. But you can go back in, you can modify all this. Now it makes it a little harder because sometimes you got to figure out what they're doing on that, especially with some plugins if they don't have extra help to help you out. But a lot of times if you're a comfortable web designer, then you're going to be basically knowing what this does for each of these. So, and then of course they put some comments in here for that. Now you don't have to use this SM blue. You can actually go in and leave it the way it is with your own styles and add your own styles to it if you need to. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to delete that style sheet here, and then let's take a look at it. You can see it's not been styled, but it still works. If I bring my mouse over About Us, here's our links. Only problem is you don't have it styled correctly yet. So you can use your own style sheet to stylize that code. Because you're working with the list items, you're able to apply the styles that you want on that. So that gets a little more difficult, but it can be done.